Hi, it's Dr. Maggie Perry, and this is Tell Me What You're Proud of. Today I have on Dr. Jessica Bull. She is a psychologist in West LA, and we're talking about my sessions with John. So, Jessica, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, can you tell me what kind of reactions you had as you listened to the sessions I had with John?
Yeah, I found him to be really insightful about his own process and the journey that he's been on. It sounds like he's been working with you for quite some time, and his self-awareness about his internal experience has really grown. It sounds like over time, um, he has really good language to describe a lot of the concepts that you talk about, whether it's intrusive thoughts to clinical perfectionism. He seems to really understand how they operate internally, and I think what was also really wonderful is I think he did a good job of showing the therapeutic process, that it takes time, right? That
Mhm.
he might have understood cognitively a lot of the concepts maybe towards the beginning of the work, but that it took his body experimentation, and I think he used the word like leap of faith several times. Like he had to actually, I think, do some small exposures to also to have a more somatic kind of awareness of safety, or to experience safety in his body, like when he would sort of, um, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember any of the particular exposures, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I think he just did a really good job of describing like what that looks like. Um, and that it's a continuing process, right? That like he continues to have new content areas pop up, and um, I really liked how you were able, I think towards the end of the second session, he talked about having judgments during group, and you were able to really help him contextualize some of those thoughts as possibly being like new content areas related to harm OCD. So I really liked that.
Yeah, I agree that he's a great example of internalizing the process and that he's moved through a number of different content areas. So, starting with contamination, moving through health anxiety, and then being able to see with his social anxiety that something like doing a podcast was an exposure. I think that was really wonderful for me to hear because you could see that he knew it was going to be anxiety provoking and he kind of interpreted that as an opportunity, and I think across the board, when people start to take their content areas and use them as examples to generalize the skills of going towards anxiety rather than bracing and avoiding, then it's just a uh, indication of the resilience of their recovery. Like they're still going to have experiences where anxiety shows up, perhaps they have thought action fusion, perhaps they avoid. But if they can quickly shift into, like, this is an opportunity, and if I don't avoid right now, not only do I have a moment that's an opportunity for empowerment, but also I'll likely suffer less and likely be less likely to get, I'll be less likely to get stuck in a cycle that I might have gotten stuck in the past.
Yeah. I think the way I think about that is like he's really learned the process so that he doesn't get stuck in content, right? That he can like zoom out and realize like, oh, this is another version of thought action fusion, and when clients seem to like really be able to have enough practice with different content areas to see the process for what it is, kind of seeing the forest for the trees or whatever, being able to sort of um, like find themselves in that process, then it's like they know sort of how to relate, differently in that moment. And that was cool.
Yeah. And just for the listeners, thought action fusion is when having a thought feels like it's true. So you have a thought like, what if I'm contaminated? And it feels like you are contaminated. So he's been able to jump from contamination fears like that one over to something like a social anxiety fear. And thought action fusion in the context of social anxiety would be something like, having the thought that people don't like me feels like people don't like me. So I choose to avoid and maybe not go to that social situation because that thought feels like I've already been rejected. So it's quite a bit of work to educate yourself about what your triggers are and what type of thought action fusion you might have, and then have the motivation and accountability to actually go towards it. And I think he's done a great job with that. The other kind of terms that we're using, content and process. Content is something like what your fears are. So content for OCD could be harm, would be what if I'm going to harm someone, or what if someone's going to harm me. Contamination is something like what if I'm contaminated by something or going to contaminate something. But then worry can also have content like work or finances or relationship. So what we mean by content versus process is that rather than getting stuck in whatever worries or intrusions that our mind is stuck on, we're looking at the process that the anxiety is like repetitively generating. And so that specific process is I'm having a thought, it's arriving with a whoosh of anxiety, and then it's giving me the urge to do something to make it go away. And John has done a great job internalizing that process, that anytime a new version of having a thought arriving with a whoosh of anxiety and giving him the urge to not do something is a time that he shifts into like, this is actually an opportunity. If I don't avoid right now, then I'm going to be less likely to get that whoosh next time.
Well said.
Thank you.